These are the top 8 GOAT format cards that see tons of play in 2025, but saw almost no play in the OG GOAT format of 2005. Can you guys believe that GOAT format is 20 years old now? So what we're going to do is take a bit of a trip down memory lane and see how the meta has evolved over that 20 years, as well as how players' mentalities have evolved in terms of what cards they think are worth playing in their deck. This is going to be a great educational video. Let's go. Starting with number 1 on our list, Dekochi, the Battle Enchanted Locomotive. Now, I know some people are going to say, hey, wait a sec, didn't Dekochi see play in 2005? And technically it did. It saw play in the format after GOAT format. And in that format, the first format right after GOAT format ended, Dekochi was actually one of the most popular cards. Tons of decks played 3 Dekochi. And in 2025 GOAT format, we still see a lot of decks that play 2 or 3 Dekochi. So I think Dekochi was kind of a case of it came out, kind of flew under the radar, and it took people a while to figure out that this was a good card. But I also think a big part of what happened and why it didn't see much play in the GOAT format of 2005 was the fact that back then, and even as GOAT format was, getting started up again, players didn't really care that much about stats, especially control players, right? Obviously, if you're an aggro player, you're going to be playing monsters with high attack. But control players kind of felt like, hey, the stats of my monsters don't really matter. It's the effect that matters. So what you see in some of these old GOAT format lists is that people were playing cards like Magical Merchant, which almost no one plays in 2025. Magical Merchant is considered like almost an unplayable card. It's only got 200 attack, 700 defense. Dekochi, on the other hand, has 1400 attack and 1000 defense. Both of those stats are relevant. 1400 is pretty decent in GOAT format. Keep in mind, 6 hits from a Dekochi is going to be enough to kill you. If the opponent has to Sakuretsu the Dekochi to stop it from hitting them, well, that's great for you as well. 1000 defense, also quite relevant. You can use it to wall out a Sangan or maybe some other small monster, but mostly Sangan. The attribute and the type and the fact that it's a flip monster, all super relevant. We love dark monsters in GOAT format. All of the chaos enjoyers want to play dark monsters, and Dekochi is a dark monster with a good effect and good stats. The fact that it is a machine can also be relevant. Not really too much, but you do occasionally see some machine decks that are playing like a bunch of Dekochis and limiter removal. But the combo that you actually see more often now is Dekochi in a Chaos Return deck. So the idea is you play 3 Dekochis, one gets hit by a crossout, either your Dekochi or your opponent's Dekochi, you banish all 3 of yours, you bring them back with a return. That's 4,200 damage right there. If you have some other monsters that got banished, it's going to be more than 4,200. Might even be enough for game. Who knows, really? So, Dekochi, this is now one of the most popular monsters in GOAT format today, but almost no one was playing it in the GOAT format of 2005. Another monster that people like to play in GOAT format these days, and I tell you, this card was not on people's radars at all in 2005. Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke. This card has decent stats, but not amazing stats. 1800 attack, 1000 defense. Definitely passable, but nothing to write home about. What we saw in older iterations of GOAT format, when the format was getting spun up in 2015, 2016, 2017, people like to play something like Skilled Dark Magician, which has 1900 attack, 1700 defense, much better stats. So why are people playing Ninja now? You read its effect, okay, it kills a defense position monster. Doesn't seem that great. Well, the most popular monster that people play 3 of in GOAT format today is Gravekeeper Spy. And Gravekeeper Spy is an absolute menace. Now, people did play Gravekeeper Spy a little bit in 2005. All of my GOAT format nerds remember that Max Suffrage actually won nationals with Gravekeeper Spy, but Gravekeeper Spy wasn't really hard meta yet, so people didn't feel that they had to counter it, even if they were playing an aggro deck. But today, Gravekeeper Spy is like the bane of an aggro player's existence, so you need something to out those spies. Ninja Grandmaster is nice because you can search it up with a reinforcement of the army. Now you've got this searchable out to spy. Always nice. Can take a couple of hits, of course. You got to clear one spy, clear the other spy. Still a really good card. People also occasionally even play Spirit Reaper. You can kill something like that. People might have like a side deck roulette barrel. You can kill that. And if you're playing against an opponent who's maybe not that experienced, doesn't know the matchup, you might get someone who plays their Blackluster Soldier in defense position, or their Chaos Sorcerer in defense position, or they leave their DD Warrior Lady in defense position, something like that. And Ninja Grandmaster can kill those as well. You might think it's a little situational, but we make up for that by the fact that it is searchable. So that is why Ninja Grandmaster is pretty much a staple in any deck with Reinforcement of the Army these days. Third on our list, and this one is also kind of making a comeback because of the presence of Gravekeeper Spy, Zaborg the Thunder Monarch. Zaborg is now, well, I guess if you don't count Thunder Dragon, Zaborg is the most popular tribute monster in GOAT format, and for good reason. 2400 attack, that gets over Gravekeeper Spy. Note that Air Knight Parsheth does not. So what we saw in both 2005 and during the early revival area in 2015-2016, people were all about the Air Knights. The idea was, hey, everyone's playing Scapegoat, Air Knight counters Scapegoat, I'm playing Air Knight. Now the mentality is, no one's playing Scapegoat anymore, but they're playing Gravekeeper Spy. And Zaborg is the counter for Gravekeeper Spy, Air Knight is the counter for Scapegoat. So it's basically just a meta call. Zaborg having 2400 attack can also attack over like a Chaos Sorcerer, right? So say your opponent's got like a Chaos Sorcerer in play, you've got a Zaborg in your grave, you can premature the Zaborg, attack over the Chaos Sorcerer. So great stat line. Zaborg and Ninja also note that they die to Tsukiyomi with only 1000 defense, but Tsukiyomi doesn't really see a lot of play these days. Chaos decks usually play one. Goat Control normally plays one. So it's definitely a card that's still in the meta, but not as much as it used to be. So we like Zaborg for its stats. We like it for its type. It's a light monster, and we like it because it deals with the monsters that are common in the meta. Those Gravekeeper Spies and Chaos Sorcerers. So the decks that typically play Zaborg, what you're going to see is Goat Control likes to play this, usually 1 or 2 copies. And also Chaos Return. Zaborg is very important there. Why? Because it's got great stats. So once the Zaborg dies, we can banish it to our Chaos Sorcerer, return the Zaborg, attack for 2400. Zaborg, you occasionally even see it teched in like Warrior decks as a one-of. Monarchs are still kind of a thing, and Monarchs would traditionally also play 2 Zaborgs. So Zaborg is seeing lots of play in all different kinds of decks. Fourth on our list, this one is kind of a combination of 2 cards, Raigeki Break and Phoenix Windblast. They are very, very similar cards. They are played in the same deck, and those are your Thunder Dragon Chaos decks. Now, why did people not play this in 2005? You can probably guess it's because, oh, this card is a -1, I can't play it. That was the mentality that people had. -1s are bad, +1s are good. If a card's a -1, you never play it. But, you know, what we're seeing is that I think really as GOAT format has evolved and the pace of GOAT format has quickened, what we're kind of seeing is that card advantage doesn't matter quite as much as people thought it did. Like, yes, it definitely still matters. But if you say go -1 to take out your opponent's Snatch Steal or deal with your opponent's set Magician of Faith, let's say, or if like with Phoenix Windblast, you just set them back a turn and you're pressuring them with Dekochis or Spies or what have you, it can be very valuable. So Raigeki Break and Windblast, you can't just run them in any deck. They pretty much go in your Thunder Dragon Chaos decks, but they are great there. And those decks, you know, typically also play Night Assailants. So you've got the Thunder Dragons, the Night Assailants, and the Sinister to discard to kind of avoid going -1. So yeah, Raigeki Break and Windblast, you are definitely going to be seeing these cards a lot in GOAT format because of how popular the Chaos decks are. Fifth on our list is Trap Dust Shoot. And unlike some of the other ones, this is not really like oh, the meta was different, so that was why people didn't play it back then. This is actually, in a way, I think Dust Shoot is kind of similar to Raigeki Break and Windblast, where people thought like, okay, a lot of times Dust Shoot's going to be dead, and if your Dust Shoot's dead, it's like you went -1, right? You virtually lose a card. So I think people were scared, especially for these longer games, that Dust Shoot was going to be dead too often, and then they could lose a match because of that, because they're down a card. Now, in GOAT Control mirrors, Trap Dust Shoot is not particularly strong. Like, it's okay, but it's not going to win you the game. Where it does win you the game, though, is against Chaos. So we've talked a little bit about the dominance of Chaos decks in today's GOAT format, and one of the ways that you kind of focus on countering the Chaos decks, how you do that is you want something that deals with your opponent's monsters, but doesn't put them in the grave, right? So if your opponent has, say, a set Dekochi and you kill it with like an exiled force, hey, they've still got a Dark in their grave, so you're kind of advancing their game plan. Dust Shoot, though, if you Dust Shoot back a Dekochi in their hand, all of a sudden that Dekochi isn't in their grave, and you can kind of hope to control how many lights and darks they have in their graveyard. And of course, the other great thing about Dust Shoot is you get to see your opponent's hand. So if you know, oh, I Dust Shooted my opponent and saw Crossout, maybe I won't set a monster. Oh, I Dust Shooted my opponent and saw Snatch Steal, I won't play my big monster. I Dust Shooted my opponent and saw Mirror Force. Well, now I know not to attack with all my monsters. So Dust Shoot, it's great against Chaos because it's a big setback that doesn't put stuff in their grave, and it also gives you valuable info. So Dust Shoot, people play it for the Chaos Mirror. Aggro decks, particularly, Dust Shoot is kind of a staple because the nice thing about aggro is that you want to Dust Shoot and see if they've got the Mirror Torrential. You want to Dust Shoot and see what kind of outs they have to your things, and then if they don't have outs, you can really start pressuring their life points without fear. Even decks like Chaos Return typically play Dust Shoot because, hey, I'm going to Dust Shoot, look at your hand, and then see if the coast is clear to like go for a big play. Control decks don't really need to play Dust Shoot. Like Goat Control can play Dust Shoot too, but it's not really as necessary for their game plan. But Chaos decks like to play it for the mirror, and aggro decks like to play it to punish the control decks. Number 6 on our list is Solemn Judgment. And this card, I think, has been debated in GOAT format for quite some time. People, I will admit, this is like the one card on the list that people did play like a tiny bit in 2005. Like if you look at the top GOAT format deck list, you will occasionally see like a Solemn Judgment or two in something like Burn or Gravekeepers. But nowadays in GOAT format, Solemn Judgment is one of the most popular traps, and it is a 3 of staple in a back row heavy aggro deck like Warriors. Solemn Judgment and also Trap Dust Shoot, they've kind of benefited from GOAT format becoming faster and more based around power cards, right? So Solemn Judgment being able to say, hey, I'm going to save this for your key card, whether it be your Snatch Steal, your Heavy Storm, your Blackluster Soldier, maybe you're tributing for Mobius and I can solemn that. Having this card that basically says, hey, this is only going to trade for another power card is very valuable. The life points, of course, are the downside, and I kind of think that that's probably what kept people from playing it in a normal deck in 2005. Keep in mind also in 2005, matches were timed and, they were only 40 minutes and games frequently did go to time. So, it makes sense that someone wouldn't have played Solemn Judgment in a GOAT control deck in 2005 with timed rounds. But it also makes sense that nowadays with a deck like Warriors or really any kind of aggro deck, Solemn Judgment is absolutely fantastic there. It has become a near staple. It is the bane of people like me, my existence, because I love to play combo decks, and Solemn Judgment is fantastic against combo decks. So if you enter a GOAT format tournament today, you are going to be seeing a lot of Solemn Judgments from all sides. Staple and Warriors and Chaos decks occasionally play it. GOAT Control occasionally play it. Can't really fault you for playing it either way. Number 7 on the list, this one's a bit more spicy, but Chain Energy. Burn decks did exist in 2005. Burn decks did top tournaments. Burn decks were definitely on people's radar. They were considered a threat, but they did not play Chain Energy. And Chain Energy, it just sees play because it can do a lot of damage, right? If you just go, hey, I'm going first, I'm gonna set all my spells or traps, activate Chain Energy, people just have a hard time dealing with that. They can have Heavy Storm, but if they don't have Heavy Storm, they're going to take a absolute ton of damage. Even if they MST it, let's say, yeah, it's a 1-for-1 trade and they paid 500. So Chain Energy, if things go according to plan, this card is often going to trade for 2,000 life, 3,000 life. It is the kind of card that basically says, hey, you have to answer this or you can't win. If you have a Chain Energy in play, your opponent can only activate 16 cards for the rest of the game. And that's assuming you don't burn them with something else, right? If you activate, a Meteor of Destruction, set, like a Just Desserts, a Secret Barrel, and Ojama Trio, and then you activate Chain Energy, it's like you've basically just locked them out of the game. If your opponent gets down really low on life, it's basically like, hey, you just can't activate any cards. It's not the case that every burn deck has to play Chain Energy, but a lot of burn decks are playing Chain Energy. It is one of the best burn cards in GOAT format, so you got to make sure that you watch out for it if you are going against burn. And last on our list, everyone's favorite card, Cyberstein. Now, I know there's like a bit of misinformation about this card. Cyberstein was the Shonen Jump prize card in 2005, but keep in mind that by the end of GOAT format, it had been reprinted as a rare. So it is not the case that, oh, well, no one played it because it was a prize card. No, it was like a $10 rare in the last month or two of GOAT format. But people didn't really think this card was good. People kind of had the mentality that, oh, prize cards, they're not printed to be good. They're printed to just kind of be unique. But as it turns out, Cyberstein is one of the most powerful, notorious cards in the game's history. Keep in mind that only about a year after GOAT format ended, I don't know, I guess it was like a year and a few months, Cyberstein had to be emergency banned. In December of 2006, Upper Deck said, Cyberstein is so good, we immediately have to put it from 3 to 0. And that was completely unprecedented at the time because, like some of these other cards on the list, it took players a while to figure out how to use it. So Cyberstein saw almost no play in 2005 and was an absolute menace in 2006. But in 2025, Cyberstein is a huge, huge threat. I mean, if we're looking at sort of combo OTK alt-win decks in general, Cyberstein is the most common thing you'll run into. And what's scary about Stein is just like in 2006, people figured out that you can kind of splash it in lots of different decks. You can throw like a one of Stein in a warrior deck with Last Will. Or you can, we even saw like the deck that was like Stein and Horus. That was kind of interesting, if I'm being honest. We've seen Stein, as like a one of in a Rescue Cat deck. You can search it with Last Will. We've seen the Last Will toolbox decks that play like, a couple of Steins and Injection Fairy Lily. I think Cyberstein is one of the most powerful cards in GOAT format. I've heard players make the analogy before that Cyberstein is almost like a BLS that requires a payment of 5,000 life instead of a light in the dark. Obviously, paying 5,000 life can be really risky. You will have the times where, I'm going to Stein and then my opponent has Ring of Destruction to just kill me. But most of the time, you'll be able to play around that. You can use Heavy Storm, Giant Trunade, MST, whatever it might be. If you have one of those cards, chances are Stein could just flat out win you the game. Stein is also great in like a Reasoning Gate deck. You can summon Stein, get out a big beefy monster gate your Stein into something really powerful. And that's probably enough for game. Cyberstein has won GOAT format tournaments before, and it is going to keep winning GOAT format tournaments in the future. But what I want to know now is, what cards do you think I missed on my list? I'm sure there are plenty of other examples. Let me know in the comments what you think the big differences are between 2005 and 2025 GOAT format. Thanks for watching.